it away.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'm Nathaniel, though most people end up actually calling me Nate. I work with the Information Center for the Environment here at UC Davis. I'm primarily a GIS programmer, but I do a lot of work with urban land use, classification and analysis, and looking at urban growth modeling. One of the outgrowths of a set of priorities established by the state has been the collection and standardization of parcel data across as much of the state as is possible. So we've been funded now for about 3 years, working on doing this in fits and starts along the way. And I want to give you just a teaser of what I'm going to be talking about in a couple of weeks at the CalGIS conference, and just looking forward to seeing everybody there. So in about 2004, to give a little bit of background on it, SOMAS released a report identifying a statewide vision for parcel data, and in particular in that were a couple focuses around the need of having for parcel data that is easily accessible and standardized in format and content for use across county borders. In furtherance of that, the California Strategic Growth Council, founded in 2008, with the goal of coordinating interagency activities dealing with air quality, natural resource and agricultural land management, affordable housing, public health, transportation, particularly the integration of multimodal systems interregionally, infill and development, community and urban center redevelopment or revitalization, and the formulation of plans across the state to meet the state's ambitious greenhouse gas legislative goals. As part of this, the Strategic Growth Council inherited the need and the ability to start assembling some of these data statewide to make it generally accessible. UC Davis, and in particular the Information Center for the Environment, became involved in this portion of the process approximately 2011, though there had been some nibbles around the edges earlier on in this. We have funding from the Strategic Growth Council and active collaboration with the California Department of Technology and interested participation from multiple MPOs around the state, so metropolitan planning organizations. Several private citizens have been very actively paying attention to this as it moves forward, and state and federal parcel data consumers have also been working with us to help define what it is that they need to be able to pull from these data. Our goals in this project are to collect parcel data from all available counties, to initially standardize the format. So for all the GIS folks, and that's mostly who I have on the line here, we're looking to standardize the table structure in this first stage, though not necessarily standardize the coding within it any more than is very easily accomplished. The focus is on making this data available and useful for urban modeling, with some potential extensions into tax revenue analysis at a state level and public safety, so notification and mailing of address type information. This data will be made available at no cost to governmental organizations. It will provide, and we're additionally working with various groups, mostly those ones listed above, to provide recommendations to the state for things that they might consider trying to encourage to improve the utility accuracy and the availability of the parcel data across the state. Our final goal, and this is one that we're for many reasons, for reasons that I think are probably obvious to many of you, we're trying to make this parcel data collection accessible not just to governmental organizations, but to the large variety of independent and interested users of these data across the state, public, private, regardless of who and where they are or what they want to do with the data. We're approaching this as a project that improves the transparency of governmental process across the state. I don't think any of this comes as a particular surprise to anybody on this call. Parcel data is maintained by each county with minimal guidance from the state. There are some very basic standards there that are required of the data, but they are not very tightly defined. And so there is a substantial translation process that has to be undertaken to standardize the data across county borders and for the entire state. Data availability varies widely. In spite of the recent Supreme Court decision, some counties are still, I'll say, questionable in their practices for making data easily and publicly accessible. That being said, many counties have made the parcel boundaries very easily downloadable. A few make more detailed attribute data downloadable as well. Most of them, if they don't make it freely downloadable, do make it available for what we would consider to be a reasonable cost of reproduction. A few of the counties continue to look like they fund their data maintenance operations using fees from data access, basically meaning that there are fees that are probably in excess of what would be considered a reasonable cost of reproduction. And a small number of the counties have licensed parcel data distribution agreements with private companies that make access to those data less convenient than we might like. We're using a relatively simple extract, transform, and load, or ETL process to do our transformations. Based on prior data sets that have been collected, we have developed ETL processes for each county to translate the data that they've provided to us in a previous collection into our standard format. Right now, we're beginning the process of collecting an updated, essentially a 2013-14 data set, and are running it through the ETL process to generate an updated, large area, nearly statewide parcel data coverage. For those that are interested, we are using Esri's data interoperability extension, and we will be making the toolboxes containing our ETL processes publicly accessible for anybody else who may wish to reuse them. We are, as a second stage, working on a standardization of the land use codes, because each county essentially has a unique land use classification system, and leaving aside all of the outstanding questions about how accurate those are or how well maintained the coding is, we are building a basic translation of the assessor's maintained land use codes into a standardized classification system that we have assembled primarily by adapting and extending the Anderson land use classification system. So our partners on this project are currently the California Strategic Growth Council and the California Department of Technology. The Department of Technology is providing data upload, hosting, and distribution services for the final versions of the data. Up until recently, we had the Board of Equalization working with us They have elected, in light of Supreme Court decision, to bow out of active participation with this project because of their opinion that their very active engagement should no longer be as necessary as it was earlier in the process. With that, I want to thank you for listening to this teaser. We'll have much more detail on exactly where we are in each of this process, in each of these projects, or pieces of this project when we meet up at CalGIS, and I encourage you to attend our session.
Hey, Nate, we've got three questions here for you. So before we end up, we just got a minute to go here, so let me ask you these questions. The first was a question, were you aware that this data is already available through private parties like Michael Baker International?
We are aware that they are. Our goal is not to replace them. Most of those are providing significant additional value over the top of the basic collection that we're doing. However, we do feel that these are public data and should be publicly accessible in a standardized format.
Okay. The second question then talks about format. Has it been considered to use the federal standard for data quality or some other international accepted standard?
Our parcel data structure that we are presenting the data in is being mapped to National CAD Spatial Data Infrastructure core parcel standard.
Okay.
So we are using that standard.
Next question, where can you download the parcel data once it's complete?
It will be accessible through the state's GeoPortal website.
All right. When will the data be available? Will it be all 58 counties be available?
The when is, both of those are partial answers. When is, they're going to be trickling in county by county as we complete the processing. We're hoping that the first one should start to be available in the next, the first updated one should start to be available in the next month or two, with the majority of them being available by the end of June, and a few more of them trickling in to finish out this portion of the project a few months after that.
Okay.
Our goal is to get all 58 counties. We are being forced to recognize that we may not get absolutely all of them. In our prior version of the collection, we had 53 out of 58 counties available to us.
Okay. Well, with that, we have a couple more questions, but we're out of time. So what I'll do, Nate, is I'll copy these questions off and send them to you from the questioner, and that person, you can reply to them directly if you'd like to. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much for participating with us today, and we really encourage everybody to go see Nate's presentation at CalGIS coming up in just about 3 weeks. If you're not registered yet, get registered. So with that, I'm going